Hi, everyone. Welcome. We are going to shortly get started with our second support seminar. We're glad to see you here. Today's topic is going to be on agency initiatives and supports. And we have a lot of information that we're going to go through very quickly. So I'm going to hurry it up with the introductions, hand it over to John to do some reminders, and then we'll get started. So hello, Natalie Elliott, New Schools Coordinator, and my colleague John is also here. We have Marian Shetty, who's our director, who will be presenting first. And then we're going to hear from Dr. Colby Self, who's the director of Texas Tutoring Supports. And then after that, closing us out will be Andrea Wilbur Nieto, who is the manager of the Additional Days School Year program. So this is a lot. I'm going to start by just handing it over to John to give you a couple of housekeeping reminders and norms about the webinar.
Hey everybody, good to see you again. Yeah, I just have 4 super quick updates. First one is just a reminder that we record these seminars. Our first one was last week, and so that recording is up on our website. So I will transition to my second update then, which is you all got an email from us today. It will be one of your first of many weekly updates, just kind of giving you key reminders, key things that may have come up throughout the week that it would just benefit the whole group to know. So you all should look out for that email today. In there, we just remind you that all the presentations are up online. The app info session recording is up online, as well as last week's seminar. And then also want to touch really briefly on the FAQ document. We are going to have that online early next week for you all. Apologies for the delay. We had an additional additional application information session. So we are compiling those questions, addressing them, and getting that ready to launch. And then lastly, just to remind everybody, and we've gotten some great questions thus far, but if you're having technical issues or any other issues with the application interface, please reach out to us ASAP. Don't sit on that. The earlier you get to it, the earlier we can help you get to an answer that will help you get your application finished. That's all I got, Natalie.
Okay, great. And just remember, this is an opportunity for you to continue to ask those questions. The chat function is disabled, so please enter them into the Q&A feature as we go through. We will try to provide time for each of our presenters to pause and answer questions as able throughout the presentations. So without further ado, I'm going to kick it over to our fearless leader, Marian Shetty, to share high-level overviews of several agency supports and initiatives.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for your time today. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. I'm going to briefly go over some agency supports and initiatives. Natalie, can I get a head nod that you can see my screen?
Looks great.
Awesome. Great. So let's dive right in. And I think first and foremost, want to just underscore that everything that we're sharing with you today is just informational. We want to make sure that you have the full understanding of the agency's initiatives, supports and programs, so that if you want to include them in your charter application, you can. I think first and foremost, there is no requirement that you do so, but we want to make sure that as you're drafting your applications, you're just aware of everything that we have to offer here at the agency, and some of the resources that go along with those programs and those initiatives. So first and foremost, I'm going to start with our Effective Schools Framework here at the Texas Education Agency. And really the goal of the Effective Schools Framework is to support powerful teaching and learning in schools. And so the framework captures research-based best practices that we would see in schools. You'll see it linked throughout the application on the embedded resource pages. And we've really oriented the questions in the application aligned to the Effective Schools Framework. So you'll see questions around strong school leadership and planning, strategic staffing, high quality instructional materials and assessments, effective instruction, and positive school culture. And so you'll notice that throughout the application, The Effective Schools Framework provides a framework of both district commitments, so what we would expect to see at the system level in a charter school, and then as well as essential actions. So how do campuses and what are those actions that campuses put into place? It highlights research-based best practices, and we have a website at the agency that has a wealth of information, and that we are going to visit and take a look at here. So you'll just give me a second. We'll pull that up. All right, Natalie, will you confirm that you can see the website?
Yes, we can.
Great. So if you go to texasesf.org, you can see here on your screen kind of this general landing page and overview of the Effective Schools Framework. You'll see the framework image that you'll see throughout here. And then at the bottom, you'll see our school improvement theory of action, and that the Effective Schools Framework is a vital component of that here at the agency as well. But what I want to point your attention to is kind of the menu bar here at the top. And you have the framework and you have each of the levers. I'm going to click here in lever 1, strong school leadership and planning. And so for each of the levers, you can then see the district commitments, which would be the system level commitment or the organizational level commitment for charter schools. And these are what local education agencies do to ensure that schools are set up for success. And you can see that here around strong school leadership and planning. And then you'll see the essential actions, right? So these are great to come back to and reference as you're writing the application of, are we including these best practices in our school design? Are we including these best practices in the systems that we're setting up for ourselves in this charter school? And so want to make sure that you have this opportunity to peruse and look at the ESF as you are creating your application. And then you have this ESF in action. So for each of the levers, you have resources as well that you can reference. So job descriptions, leadership team meeting and outcomes, a leadership team meeting agenda. So for each of the essential actions, or for specific essential actions, there are models and resources that you can use and kind of build from and build on those best practices, as well as videos here that describe each of these components as well too. The website also references the vetted program. So these are technical assistance providers along with our education service centers that know lots about the ESF. And so just handy to know and reference who those folks are. And talks a little bit about the diagnostic process as well, and then a connection to resources. So just want to make sure that you guys know where this content is. So I'm going to go back to our deck now. Natalie, have we switched back to our deck?
Not now, we have, yes.
Okay, great. So that is the Effective Schools Framework. We've got the ESF website. Make sure that you're visiting it, make sure that you're using it and reviewing as you review your application. The next item I'm going to talk about are math innovation zones. And so math innovation zones help to support high quality blended learning for K-8 programs. And so this is an opportunity and initiative that the agency has had. It's a 4-year design and launch process. It helps systems and charters really try to implement high quality blended learning for both K-8 and math, and as well as through the Blended Learning Grant Program, ELA as well too. So if this is something that you're interested in, you can apply after the charter is awarded, but there are additional resources kind of describing what does that look like and what do those blueprints for those math innovation zones look like as well. And then for those of you who are interested in high school and even a little bit earlier than that in the middle school level, we also want to flag the Texas College and Career Readiness School models that the agency has as well too. So these models blend high school and college coursework to help students develop technical skills, earn college credentials and degrees, as well as pursue in-demand career paths. So on the website for this at the agency, there are 3 different types of college and career readiness school models that we feature. The first is early college high school. This allows students to earn a high school diploma and an associate's degree or up to 60 college credit hours as well. So if you're interested around having that be a component of your high school program design, I would recommend you take a look at that too. On P-TECH, so this is a pathway from high school to post-secondary education to employment. So lots of different P-TECH pathways based on what are high wage, high demand jobs in your community, depending on where you're launching your charter school. Really interesting and unique opportunity, as well as additional supports and revenue for these programs as well too. And then lastly, T-STEM, this is around improved instruction around academic performance in science and mathematics. So there's this pathway as well for schools that are interested in offering that at the high school level too. So for schools that plan to add these programs at the high school level, planning starts early. And so there are blueprints for each of these models that the agency has created that really walk you through what are the steps that you have to go through year after year. And you can see from the diagram here that there typically is around 12 to 18 months of planning that goes into this. So if you're interested in doing that, now is the time to start planning out these components in the design of your charter application. And then schools receive a provisional designation, and then the full designation comes in after the surveying of students. And so there's information available on the blueprints and more information about the funding that comes with this on the College and Career Readiness website that is linked here in the document. So I've gone over just a couple of our resources that we have that I'm going to share with you today. Just wanted to see if anybody has Q&A before we hand it off to our next presenter. And then again, if you have a question, please put your question in the Q&A function. All right, I see our next presenter is here, Dr. Colby Self. Not seeing any other questions come in. And I will hand it off now to Colby. Are you ready, Dr. Self?
Yes, can y'all hear me okay? All right. Thank you, Marion. I learned something there at the end of your presentation. I was glad I got to see it. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and do a check for the presentation here. Give me just a second as we transition. Y'all see my PowerPoint okay? Well, welcome. I'm excited to be here. I was asked to come speak on House Bill 4545 and in a broader term, high impact tutoring. So glad to be here, and we'll get started with the presentation. If you would hold your questions at the end, similar to the prior presentation, we'll take questions, or if you'll put them in the Q&A function as we go, we'll get to those later as time permits. I'm Colby Self. I'm the Director of Texas Tutoring Supports. I've been with TEA a little over a year. Prior to that, I was a public school elementary principal for the previous 9 years, and AP and classroom teacher. So I've recently come from public ed and excited to be able to share House Bill 4545 from the perspectives of what our schools are looking at and the supports we've developed at TEA to help move the work forward. We'll start with a general overview of House Bill 4545. This will be a broad overview. Definitely will not get into the details you would need as a school leader but we will point you in directions of some additional resources that would allow you or anybody else that needs additional information on House Bill 4545 and how it impacts schools moving forward. So House Bill 4545 was passed in August of last year. So it's been a little over a year and a week since it was passed and went into effect. And pretty much to summarize, House Bill 4545 said each time a student that does not perform satisfactorily on a grade 3 through 8 star or EOC must be provided one of two options: accelerated instruction in the applicable subject area in the subsequent summer or school year. And there's a couple of options. The student can be assigned to a TIA designated teacher who is certified as master exemplary or recognized in the subject area for which they did not perform satisfactorily. Or option 2, which is probably the most widely used option due to the limited TIA certification we have in place now. But the TIA designations continue to grow. So we'll have more and more teachers available as we progress through the school year. But students are then to receive at least 30 hours of supplemental instruction, in this case, tutoring, during the school year or in the summer. Just as a note, parents are allowed to request a particular classroom teacher if more than one's available for the option 1 if needed. And parents also have a right to participate in the planning and planning the accelerated instruction and supports. Parents can file grievances to ensure accelerated supports are properly provided if they are entitled to the student who did not perform satisfactorily. Just to clarify, satisfactorily is performing below approaches. So if a student scores approaches, meets, or masters on STAR, they would be considered as passing, and therefore they would not then be entitled to receive the 30 hours of supplemental instruction. I do have a link on this presentation at the bottom. That is a great resource. It is our House Bill 4545 frequently asked questions. It was updated recently with some of the current events and questions we're getting. So this will be made available after the presentation today for you to link to and look at if you have a specific question or concern. It's used by a lot of parents, a lot of staff, a lot of LEA leaders to seek answers to 4545. One of the notable things about 4545, House Bill 4545, is it removed retention and retesting requirements. Used to students in 5th and 8th grade would have to retest multiple times in order to have an opportunity to perform satisfactorily. If not, they would have to go to summer school. And then there was discussion of automatic retention if the student still didn't perform satisfactorily, and that process would have to be appealed for the student to progress to the next grade as part of the grade placement committee. So in short, some type of support for students has been in place for some time. So this is just a change in that's been in effect this past year, and we'll continue to move forward with the implementation this year. But it does ultimately remove the high stakes testing for students by offering these supports that are available. So we're going to talk a bit about House Bill 4545 compliance and high impact tutoring. You may hear high impact or high dosage tutoring is often used synonymously with it. And we'll talk a little bit about the structures that are in place and how implementing House Bill 4545 minimum requirements could easily move into the more impactful high impact tutoring sessions that we all talk about and encourage LEAs and other educational entities to look at to support their students before or after school programming in different areas. So if you look at this, this diagram here, high impact tutoring is available, but it extends beyond the STAR tested grades. You look at pre-K through 12 as an option. So it would involve supporting students in kinder, first, pre-K, first, second grade to support them prior to getting to the 3rd through 8th and EOC testing years. and hopefully would benefit the students prior to that. So that would be high impact tutoring versus what's required under 4545 requirements. Can be required or voluntary, can be universal, needs driven, curriculum driven, effective for up to 4 students per trained tutor. House Bill 45 does have in statute a 3-to-1 ratio unless there's a parent waiver obtained. So if you're setting up a tutoring program and it involves students that are required to receive the 30 hours of 45, you must ensure that the 3-to-1 ratio is met, 3 students to 1 tutor, and that there is no less than 30 hours of instruction at least 1 time per week. Versus high impact tutoring, research shows can go up to 4 students, and you look at 3 to 5 tutoring sessions per week of at least 30 to 60 minutes. So they both address supplemental core instruction, so it's not replacing their current instructions. In addition to, both are designed to use high quality instructional material, tutor-friendly, skill-based curriculum, and they're both designed to employ well-trained, consistent tutors. The consistent tutors are not required, but it shows to be one of the better practices that we stress. And we also need to have oversight from either the district administration or a program coordinator. We need to have oversight of that process and implementation of the tutoring. What does research say high quality programs can do, high quality tutoring programs can do? Well, again, the well-trained, consistent tutor, and this does not have to be a certified teacher. This does not have to be a classroom teacher. This does not have to be someone with a graduate degree or associate's degree. The factors we look at is who's been trained on the content for which they're delivering. And is the materials that are being used, are they high quality instructional materials? We look for 1-to-1 or small group instruction. Again, that goes back to that 1 to 3 is what's mandated in 45, but you may see in the research a 1 to 4 ratio. Embedded in the school day is ideal because then you have the students are on campus. It's part of their normal routine as they go through the day. Looking for at least 3 sessions per week. Whereas if you're just implementing 45, the minimum required is 1 time per week, but there's not a duration indicated. So to bump that up to high impact tutoring, you'd want to have the multiple sessions per week of at least 30 minutes. And both tutoring sessions would need to be data driven and support the progression of the students and be able to provide that formative data as well as students progress through the process. TEA has set up some great resources for implementation of House Bill 45 and the progression to high impact tutoring. So TEA as a result of House Bill 1525 has provided additional funding. There has been additional funding provided of $1,290 per student who's below grade level for 2 years. Again, this is tied to ESSER funding formulas. But there's also quite a bit of ESSER funding available. Many districts close to $4 billion. Again, this is as of May, so it probably has gone up. Has only spent about 74 million. So there's quite a bit of ESSER funding available. And as a whole, through our vetted Texas Tutor Corps, we've had grants of over $174 million and other support such as supplemental tutoring licenses, which we'll talk about in a minute, where TEA is paying for the licenses for Decision 6 and 11 participants. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. So there has been quite an influx of funding to support this effort. And if you're wondering about how to get this all set up, there are some basic resources available to do so. Just a key to keep in back of your mind, the schools that we talk to that have had success with setting up high impact tutoring and meeting their House Bill 45 requirements have been able to embed their tutoring time during the school day. This is an example of an elementary school. They have win time or what I need. So students either have independent study or they're receiving tutoring, so they're not missing any of the core instruction, which is forbidden to remove them from core instruction under House Bill 4545. We don't want to create further gaps by pulling students out of core instruction so that they can receive tutoring for that. So keep that in mind. Schedules have been key. A lot of secondary schedules have come up with different ideas, such as an extended lunchtime, an hour lunchtime, where the first hour is for those that need tutoring, and then they go to lunch for the second half of the hour, 30 minutes. Lots of different and creative ways to work in scheduling. So something definitely to consider as you're setting up a program or setting up for your school year. You want to be sure that you have the correct staffing and the availability of the resources you can use. Again, scheduling can help to reduce the need for external staff. We are facing labor shortages still to hire supplemental staff, and also consider virtual tutoring. We have several approved providers that have been reviewed by TEA that could help with just setting up a virtual tutoring session. Usually in a one-on-one scenario, the virtual tutor would meet with the student and they would work through the materials there in that small group setting. So as of the last cycle, which is last school year, TEA authorized 50 plus approved providers. We have 130 LEAs that were working with 27 approved providers. This was as of April, so it extended beyond that. And 17 of the LEAs are using the 100% in-person tutoring, but majority of them are using the virtual tutors. As you know, the COVID closures were still a reality as of last year. So the virtual tutors were able to meet the needs of a lot of districts and educational organizations with that. Currently, there's a lot of tutors available, 176,000 virtual tutors. Again, the capacity is there if the LEAs or educational organizations are willing to reach out with that. Just some key supports. We did set up the workshop series and have cohorts, and these are positioned with each of our education service centers. Really, the source of information for you, for all our schools, is to go through the ESCs. They will set up and help with tutor training if you are participating with our Decision 6 or Decision 11 T-class grants. But they also offer some general technical support that could be available to you at no cost. We have the TEA subsidized providers, again, through Decision 6 or 11, which consists of Amplify and BookNook, which are our reading providers, and Zern, which is our math products that we offer. We have the TEA approved provider list, which I talked about previously. Again, T-class Decision 6. We have close to 300 participants statewide in that. And then our ESCs did receive grants to help support the lift on implementing tutoring and the outcomes based for that. So we've really worked with our ESCs to help provide that level of support that may be needed. Resources currently available. We have our Texas Tutoring website. There's a great toolkit. We've even developed a fidelity of implementation rubric that can be used by anyone. We're primarily it's required to be used as part of our Decision 6 participants, but it's open and it's a checklist that's interactive in a spreadsheet. So you're free to look at that and see what components we're looking for successful House Bill 4545 implementation, but also moving into that high impact tutoring program you may have. The FAQ is invaluable with resources and questions, and there's definitely resources and webinars available. The Vetted Texas Tutor Corps does list some of our educational service centers as staffing providers, the TEA approved providers, as well as subsidized providers information for T-class Decision 6, and it does span into 11 as well. There are some ESC-led opportunities I mentioned, the toolkits and supports, one-on-one technical assistance, the HIT workshop series, subsidized provider training, And there is tutor recruitment, as I mentioned, with ESCs 1, 2, and 20. So I know that was quick. I had about 15 to 20 minutes, want to be sure to get through the content. And going to check is in a question. When we talk about 45-45, are we only talking about K through 8, or is HIT part of 45-45 too? So that's a great question. And I tried to separate it, but they're also together in a lot of ways. 45-45 came out after we started talking about high impact tutoring as a benefit for K through 8 or pre-K through 12 students. High impact tutoring helps students get caught up and perform on grade level by that supplementary accelerated instruction. 45-45 came out and said, you must provide tutoring, or you must provide supplemental accelerated instruction for your students that take any of the state tests. So students 3rd through 8 that take STAR and end of course exams in high school. So that kind of pushed it into, it's a good practice to have to, you must provide some level of tutoring. But again, House Bill 45-45 is a minimum level of tutoring supports. It only requires 1 time per week with no time structures on it. And it does promote the smaller ratios, 3 to 1. It does recommend the same tutor. So there's a lot of overlap there between high impact tutoring and what's required with 45-45. In essence, if you set up a high impact tutoring program and it spans those grades that do require House Bill 45-45 tutoring requirements, you're going to meet those standards pretty easily for the most part. Well, that's all I have. Are there any more questions that came up? I know it's a lot. It's like, what's the drinking from a fire hydrant, if you will. But definitely a lot of resources. I'd encourage you to explore the links on the PowerPoint. And if you have any questions, feel free to email us. We're pretty quick on getting back to you on that.
That sounds great. Thank you so much for taking the time, Colby. So just to reiterate, everyone, this is just information that is required now in the state of Texas. If you're planning a charter proposal that incorporates these grade levels, then you should be mindful of these requirements. They are linked in the resource page in the Generation 28 application. We just really wanted someone who is an expert on them to come and speak a little bit more specifically to implementation. So these are all things that you need to be keeping in mind as you craft the school design section of your proposal. We have questions that are explicitly about accelerated instruction. So just really good practices and requirements to keep in mind. So thank you again for your time and expertise.
Well, thank you for the invitation, Natalie. And I can't stress enough, as Natalie mentioned, as you go into looking at developing a charter school, the planning up front, I think, can help lead to success. So please explore those resources and reach out to us if we can help you any further.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, and now we are going to transition to our final presentation from as far as agency supports and initiatives. We have Andrea Wilborn Nieto, who's the manager of Additional Days School Year Funding Program. And we're just going to turn it over to you, if that's okay.
Sounds good. Let me go ahead and set up my screen. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Please pardon me, I'm getting over a really bad infection, so I will be constantly drinking water. So my name is Andrea Wilborn Nieto. I am the Additional Days School Year Manager here at TEA. So I handle all of Decision 7. And what Additional Days School Year is, it was part of House Bill 3. And what came up in House Bill 3 was that we wanted to find a way to help minimize what we call summer slide. And it's that period of when school finishes and the next school year starts. We've noticed, not just us, but there was a survey that went out and polled that, summer slide happens to all students, but the students that have the most summer slide are the students that have low economic disadvantage. And so for that case, you can see this graph right here that we put together. The green line is for our middle class students, usually go in summer. They'll attend usually like summer camps and things like that. But a lot of times our low income students, they don't have those same amenities, afforded to them. So we end up having this summer slide. And what came out of the results of this evaluation, the study, was that by the time our students get to 5th grade, they could be up to a 3-year grade level gap in their learning education due to summer slide. So what we do here at Additional Day School Year is we're trying to tackle that and minimize summer slide as much as we can. So House Bill 3 has added half-day formula funding for school systems that want to add instructional days beyond the minimum 180 days with 75,600 operational minutes to their calendar. You can add 2 days, you can add all the way to 30 days. There's not a minimum, but the max that you could add is 30. And if you look here in this chart right here, you'll see that, we have the 180 instructional days, regular school year, and then you can add up to 30 additional, what we call ADSI days for half-day formula funding. So in order to be eligible, there are a couple of requirements that the school district does have to meet. The first requirement is that you have to at least service one grade level in grades pre-K through 5. So ADSI half-day funding is not available for 6th, 7th, 8th grade, 12th grade. It is only available for pre-K 5. You must ensure that your campus academic calendar consists of 180 days with 75,600 operational minutes, and does not include any staff development waivers. You have to be willing to add up to, again, like I said, could be 2, could be 3, but up to 30 additional half days of instruction to your core 180 instructional day calendar for that particular campus or multiple campuses. You must have a certified teacher deliver at least 2 hours of instruction on that ADSI day. So your core curriculum must be taught by a certified teacher. And you must host ADSI days on separate days from the regular instructional calendar. So what that means, for example, if you are scheduled to have school regular instructional from August 15th to August 19th, you can make August, let's just pretend 20th your ADSI day. But if August 15th to 19th is already your regular instructional day, you can't add ADSI to that day. So ADSI is an additional to your regular instructional days. I know that can sound a little bit different, but that's the way it works. So we have a couple of design considerations here. And so there are 3 options for ADSI. We have the ADSI Voluntary Summer Program, which is really what you're building up is a 25 to 30 days extra and creating a summer program that is filled with enrichment opportunities, opportunities for students to go on field trips, opportunities to bring in outside community partners into your school district, into your campus to help with students. For example, it can be like pairing up with the Boys and Girls Club to have some kind of sports camp, things of that nature, while also doing academic instruction during that time and focusing on using our HQIM, high quality instructional materials that we have available. Another option is Intersessional Calendar. This actually proposes targeted remediation. It's not a summer program. It's a targeted remediation. It's spaced out over the full year. It may be like in increments of a week at a time for a subset of students. And we have a couple of campuses and a couple of districts around Texas that are doing the Intersessional Calendar. And then what we have is totally reevaluating and rethinking your school day and which is the full year redesign. And full year redesign focuses on looking at your everyday school schedule and thinking creatively outside of the box is how can we best use this space to provide more time for teacher collaboration, less time for teachers standing in front of students, more time for students to have additional brain breaks, more time for students to have enrichment opportunities. And so what you're really doing is you're really redesigning your entire school year. And we would, in this situation, we really recommend that you look at like maybe a 210-day calendar total to really like stretch out your everyday learning along with all these little enrichment pieces, brain break times, and time for your teachers to collaborate and work together and really focus in on what are the best practices for students and how do we get students to really grow academically. And so before I move on to the next slide that provides some additional ADSI resources that we have, are there any questions with what I've gone over?
I don't see any questions in the Q&A currently, but participants, if anything comes up during the presentation, feel free to enter it. We'll have plenty of time for Q&A at the end.
Perfect. Here we have a slide that we will make available to y'all with a couple of places that you can go find more information about the additional day school year. We have our ADSI website. We have some examples of what some schools around the state have been doing for a summer program, examples on what an intersessional calendar would look like, for your redesign calendar, how to get money to make this work for your school, and a lot of other things that we have available that you can definitely click on these links and kind of look around. And so here's an example of a summer program. We have Snyder ISD that added 30 additional days for their summer program. So they had a 30-day summer program. And this is a flyer that they created. And they had field trips, they had art projects, students had sports camps. They brought in outside community partners to help provide enrichment to students. And we had a lot of great feedback from parents on this one, and for students and things like that, that they really put together a really good summer program. An example that we have of the Intersessional Calendar example is Garland ISD. They added 22 days, additional days to their 180 calendar, and they added some intersessional weeks here and there, fall, winter, spring, and summer. And they were able to bring back a subset of students and work with them for tutoring or enrichment. They had all kinds of different activities, inviting students back to help minimize that summer slide. And another example is Aldene Isd. They are a 4-year redesign district that we have, and they added 30 additional days into their calendar. And as you can see, it's really redesigning the entire school year. Their additional days are in yellow. And so you'll see that they had them on Wednesdays and they were throughout the entire school year. And of course, they had a really good turnout of attendance by putting it on a Wednesday, because most students all came on Wednesdays versus putting their day on a Friday. And so their students did have a 4-week summer break because this calendar was a little bit more expensive and went a whole 210 days. So here are some examples that we have, and they'll have these available to share with you all. And I know that that's what I have for ADSI. Are there any other questions?
I just wanted to come off mute and just kind of remind applicants that this is an initiative that the agency offers. It's not, I believe, and please, Andrea, correct me if I'm wrong, but if the charters were to open their first year of operation, they could not be eligible for ADSI. It would be something after their initial year of operation. Is that correct?
That is not something that I know of.
Okay.
Additional day funding is really based off of PEAMS reporting.
Okay.
So this one, the way that it works is you would submit your extended year calendar on your PEAMS 4 submission that happens in August. And so if you had any additional days that you added to your calendar once you started your school year, you would report it in the PEAMS 4 submission. And
Okay.
then that's where your funding would happen.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Thank you for clarifying that. We just really wanted to let our potential applicants know about these programs, especially ADSI. Creating an innovative calendar option is something that many charters have done in the past. It is something that is supported by the agency. Obviously, even for traditional LEAs and ISDs, they are doing it now too through this ADSI initiative. So we just wanted to make sure that everyone knew about this program. If you were interested in having a non-traditional calendar, so to speak, again, as the previous initiatives discussed today, this is linked in one of the resource pages in the Generation 28 application, and the website is linked, and we will make the resources available that Andrea shared today. If there are any questions, we have a few minutes. We can give you some good wait time, like good educators, about any of the information presented today, or if you have questions about, technical support issues with the application, we can tackle those as well. And while we wait, I'm going to ask John to wrap us up with some reminders.
Yeah, so just to reiterate and repeat, hopefully you all will check your email today or tomorrow. If you did not get that email from us, please just reach out to us just to make sure that we have your email. Also a reminder, we've gotten a few emails asking about confirmation of attendance for those application information sessions. And again, as a reminder, there are no confirmations of receipt. There is no little piece of paper we give you like we used to. So if you attended, then we have a record of that via Zoom. And so that should not be an issue. So don't worry about it. If you attended, then you attended. I think that might be it on my end, Natalie, in terms of updates.
Okay, sounds good. We don't have any questions coming through. So we are going to give you some time back. Thank you so much for attending our second support seminar. We hope that you've had the opportunity to register for forthcoming seminars. Next week will be a high quality instructional materials, a deeper dive than what was presented in the mandatory info session. We hope to see you back then. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you again, Andrea, and our other presenters, and we will see you next week, folks.